The Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association presents Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standard-bred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by Eldorado Scioto Downs, now racing Tuesday through Saturday. First post time, 6:15. Now here's your host, OHJJ brand ambassador, Roger Houston.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus. We've made the trip to the famed Delaware County Fairgrounds to talk with the largest stable here at the fairgrounds, the Brian Brown operation. Brian Brown, our guest today on Freshman Focus. Brian, did you get started in harness racing with their family?
Yes, I started out with my dad. You know, we're basically born into the business. When we were kids, old enough to go to the barn to work, we spent the weekends and the summers at the fairground. So I worked under my dad and my uncle for several years until I actually, after I graduated high school, I worked for Ivan Sugg one winter and then went back home and then eventually went on my own.
What year was it that you went on your own?
Oh, I'm gonna say about 87 was probably my first year that I had actually had 5 or 6 horses that I could do it on my own.
You know, you mentioned the fact that in your lifetime as a trainer, you've broke a lot of 2-year-olds and raced the young horses. Your stable personnel, your family, with you early on, and now they're reaching a point where they're going out on your own. It has been great for the Brian Brown operation to have family all around you.
It has been great. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of people that's been here for several years that's almost like family. So, but when I had, my kids were younger, just out of high school and everything, my son, his girlfriend was here, she's still here. My daughter and my son-in-law, they both came to work for me. I've had a brother-in-law, sister-in-law, nieces, nephews, my brothers have both worked for me at one time. So we still consider this a family business, even though I'm down to just a couple family members left.
Cam and Bo both in the process of going out on their own.
Yeah, they've been out. Jess, her and Cam have been on their own probably 3 to 4 years now, and this is Bo's first year on his own.
We speak of a family operation, but let's face it, the backbone of the Brian Brown stable is your wife, Jen.
She sure is. You know, at one time, especially when we didn't have a big stable, she would help me train, jog, do all the barn work, all the managing of the barn these days. Back then, you know, and when we got more horses, like 20 horses, we'd have 2 grooms and 2 riders. Her and the other guy was doing almost all the barn work. We'd all clean stalls and get done. We'd throw harness on a couple. After that, her and the other guy did all the barn work. So she's always worked hard, and she's built this up as much or more than I have. Nowadays, she doesn't get to go to the races much because she has to be here to manage. She does all the ordering of everything, equipment, the feed, the hay, sawdust, manages all the help. She used to do all of our staking until we got up probably 50, 60 horses. It was just asking too much. So we switched to a staking service. But she's done it all. She helped me train. She even drove a couple races. Mm-hmm. Ships, warms up, whatever. Like I said, I don't even get to go to the races as much as I used to because there's so much training that you have to be here.
In past years, you've had maybe better than 100 horses, but this year it seems like you're down to 80 horses?
We started, in Florida we had 69, and I had another 6 or 8 up here that we picked up when we came home. I left a couple with Cam and Jess. They were older horses that I don't race many older horses anymore, so they stayed with them. but we've been up to 113, and for me that was too many. Even 70, I don't have to have that many, but you know, when you want to stay competitive, you need chances. And I've had homebreds that were small that, you know, you didn't think was that much when you started, turned into really good horses. So I still like to race a lot, even though I don't get to go to the races as much. But to me, you still have to have numbers to have the opportunities.
Let's go back to early in your career. Is there one particular horse that kind of changed everything for Brian Brown?
I've had some nice horses beforehand, but it was Won the West. You know, and there was a horse that led to Won the West that nobody probably heard of. He wound up a horse named, geez, now I can't think of him. He was a Towner's big guy. We sold that horse for $30,000. My partners at the time, the Concerts under Strolin stable. Doc Jim was my vet for years. They said, take part of that money, go buy a PA bred horse that you really like. Two guys, Jim Kaler, Bill Robinson went in with him. It was Won the West. So, you know, there's a story that leads to Won the West. But even though I did not race Won the West, I bought him, broke him, he broke a bone, got him ready, qualified him at the Meadows, and I was in Upper Sandusky then. That was a 3.5 hour, almost 4 hour drive. And that was it late December when I took him over there. I didn't want to have to drive to the Meadows every week. He was too big of a horse to race at Northfield every week. So I took him to Ronnie. I had sent him horses, a few horses before that. He did well. But Won the West changed my life even if I never raced the horse. He led to all of these horses.
Then you had a number of years, and about what, 3, 4, or 5 years ago, biggest years you've had with the likes of Fear of the Dragon and Down by the Seaside and Blazing Britches and all those world champion horses.
We had a really good run for 5 years. It just kept progressing, and we did a little better each year. The money earnings went up each year. Probably had a little better horse each year. Lost for Words was probably the first horse I had. Actually, it was Colors of Virgin. She won the Jugette, was 4th in the Breeders' Crown, won a big race at Hoosier. As a 4-year-old, she did win a Breeders' Crown. Then it was Lost for Words, or they were probably close to about the same time. Lost for Words made just shy of $1 million and never won a major race. He was just in there knocking heads every week. So then it led to Down by the Seaside, Fear of the Dragon, Blazing Britches. They were all 3 in 1 year. Looking back on it, I wish they were broke up to where I had that top horse every, 3 years in a row instead of all in 1 year.
Yeah.
But really the memories that lead back to that year, I still go back and watch their replays some just to relive that. And at the time, it wasn't as fun as it was afterwards watching, because there was so much going on behind the scenes. Racing 3 horses, one of them there was something wrong, not terribly, but there was always something going on. One wouldn't race good that week. So instead of enjoying the other horse winning, you were worrying why the other horse wasn't. Blazing Britches, probably the fastest overall horse I've ever trained, but she just had her problems. She made it through her 3-year-old year, lost a month during her 3-year-old year early, and then got sound again and came again, but then she just couldn't hold it together at 4 and 5. But one of the best horses I've ever sat behind.
Most trainers go through a process in picking out their yearlings, but it seems like you kind of been influenced by Down by the Seaside.
Right. My main guys, Country Club, Joe Sobraco, Rich Lombardo, Bill Donovan. Rich and Joe and Jim Kaler owned Seaside. Mm-hmm. So I bought more horses for them, so naturally they were Seasides. Mm-hmm. Now those people all bought Pennsylvania breds too, mm-hmm. but most of our purchases were Seasides. I wound up with 4 Fear the Dragons. Doc Hutchinson bought a couple and I bought a couple. Actually, I only bought one. and we raised one. So I didn't get as many dragons, but I really like what I see in the Seasides. The dragons are doing very well too, but when you only have a couple, it's hard to give a big opinion of them. I have a lot of Seasides, so they're doing really well. I have a lot of people, whenever I go somewhere I've been to qualifiers is all I've been to. I've had a few phone calls, text messages. It seems like everybody I talk to has a Seaside that they really like. Now that's been maybe a month ago, so now maybe they're starting to separate themselves. But at one time, and even guys, there's people in New Jersey, Mark Harder, Noel Daly, Tony Alanya has one he says is good. Travis Alexander says he has 3. One of them he says is a really nice colt. So it's nice other people have the same opinion. I hope when I get to racing, I have some of the better ones too.
But you got the right one.
Yeah, but it seems to be every time I talk to somebody, I always wonder, man, are mine as good as theirs? But time will tell.
Do you have most of your ownership groups lined up beforehand, or do you buy the horses by yourself and then offer them to people, or how do you handle that process?
The majority of them are probably, the biggest share of them are sold before we even buy the horse. Mm-hmm. The country club, he has a lot of his own partners. Again, Joe Sobraco goes in on every horse that the country club buys. Rich Lombardo goes in some, Bill Donovan some, Al Schmidt horse has been on some. Sometimes there's pieces left over. The country club usually takes half of their purchases. So if there's a fourth, I go on my text and put a group of owners together, send that text out, what horse is available and what price, what percentage. But I do have a handful that I will buy myself, mm-hmm. and then I have partners that go in on those horses.
Larger stables like Ron Burke and Tony Alanya want to own a piece of every horse they have, but you seem like you're more just of a trainer rather than being an owner.
I would like to own more, but I try to keep it under control to where the expenses don't get out of sight. And and my training at the price I charge, I pay the bills and everything with training. I make a little bit of money, but all my profit comes from the 5% or a horse that I own. Mm-hmm. So, it's tough getting the really good horses. We've owned a few horses that have made pretty nice horses we've done well with, but my biggest cash influx is the 5% of training.
Your stable seems to be dominated by pacers. What's the deal with trotters?
I had one this year. He didn't make it. When I first started, I had, the first year second year I was on my own, I probably had 8 horses, 6 of them were trotters. We did okay. I didn't pay enough attention as a kid. My dad and uncle were really good at making horses trot. They were just average homebreds, raced at fairs for years, but they could make them trot. I didn't pay enough attention to learn all that. But again, my owners got to where they didn't want trotters. They might drive an hour or two to the races, their trotter's running behind the gate. They'd say, I drove all this way to see that, and they got to where they wouldn't buy them. And once you're kind of rumored to be this kind of a trainer, whether it's a pacer, trotter, filly, colt, that sticks with you and you don't get those opportunities. I would love to train more trotters now, but especially now I don't think we have to have the shoeing that my dad and uncle did years ago. They're much more natural. Like pacers, they've evolved. I think the trotters probably have evolved as much as the pacers have.
Process of breaking horses. You used to use a lot of Amish to break your horses, but you've got now, it seems like, you're breaking more and more of them by yourself in your stable.
We got to using an Amishman that does a really good job. And because we were racing later into the year, and it just made it easier to have someone else break them. When you're breaking a yearling, it's 3 people go out there at one time. I can send them to my Amishman. If he's got them going on a month, he'll have shoes, hobbles. they come back and they stand like an old horse. One guy goes to the track with that horse. So it made it so much easier on us. But in the last few years, we haven't raced as late in the year. By the time Lexington's over, we're almost done. We'll only have a handful of horses, maybe even in the barn. So to keep my help employed, we've had to go back to breaking more horses.
The staking of horses, sire stakes, Buckeye, county fairs. How do you decide on the staking process?
For me, it's not that hard because we basically go the same places every year. The Ohioans stay in Ohio, but I have, the last couple of years, I've staked some Ohio horses to Lexington, to the International and the Bluegrass, and we've done well. You know, they like to have a lot of races in Lexington, so they're not always big fields, so they get the better horses get scattered out. My Ohio ones, and they're my better Ohio ones, have went down there and done okay. We did stake a few Seasides to the Breeders' Crown this year. So, you know, we want to help him too, but they legitimately act like they could be that kind of horse.
You have qualifiers here at Delaware 2 times in the month of June. This is a big benefit to not only you, but everybody that trains here at Delaware as well.
That's the whole reason for doing that is you know, you're here. You don't have to ship. You race right out of your barn. You don't have to go to the paddock and come back. The hard part of going to like Scioto, and you know, we could have 20 or 30 qualifying in one day. The hard part's getting them warmed up. You know, there's only a certain amount of breaks, and I can't have 10 horses on the track at once. So here we have a back track. We can go to the back track, have them jogging while one race is on the track, and then come out as soon as that race is over, hit the track, go a mile, and be off in 5 minutes. So we do here, we give everybody time to warm up. So it's kind of more like a matinee, but you know, it's a little more serious than matinee. When people come here to qualify, you know, our track's usually really good. Our track men do a really great job getting ready for those qualifiers, and we roll along pretty good.
Do you try to get a start in your 2-year-olds prior to going into the stake races?
It would be nice, but it doesn't. Generally, it doesn't happen because when you go to a maiden, they're only taking one of your horses. Well, I might have 6 or 8 Ohio-bred 2-year-old pacing colts, so I can't get them all that start before the sire stakes. So we'll try to. We want at least 2 qualifiers. If it works out to where we have time, we may take a handful of them that I think either is going to be in really tough, like the PA breds, or one that might not have qualified as well in them 2 starts. I may go to Scioto and qualify a 3rd week before the sire stakes starts.
Buckeye Stallion Series or Ohio Sire Stakes, is that a difficult decision to make when it comes time to enter them?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants a sire stake horse, but generally the horse tells you that we may give them that first shot going in the sire stake just to see, you know, maybe they're on the bubble of, maybe they're a little better than a Stallion Series horse, but maybe they're not as good as a sire stake. So we may give a horse like that chance to go in the sire stake, but you know, the only way to make money is try to be 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, or you ain't making much money in any race. So you eventually, you have to put the horses in the right races.
A lot of opportunities here in the Buckeye State, where it's county fairs, Buckeye Stallion Series, Ohio Sire Stakes. Isn't the state of Ohio the place to be?
It is, and Ohio has grown so much. Our purses are so much better. The quality of the horses just keep getting better every year. I don't know if it'll be this year, but within a couple years, you'll see an Ohio bred, and it could happen this year. Charlie May, Heart of Chewbacca could go with the better horses. So, you know, we've always had, back when Falcon Almahurst, Nobleland Sam, there was always one that could go out and compete on the Grand Circuit. BJ Scoot won the jug. You know, so there's always been that one. I think in time, the breeding is going to improve so much in Ohio, basically just because of the money we race for. People are willing. We spent $100,000 I think Seaside had 7. One of them brought 200. Fear the Dragon had at least 2, if not more. So the money is in Ohio. People from out of state are willing to spend the money to be in Ohio now.
I always mention the fact that Anthony McDonald with the stable up in Canada, his #1 jurisdiction is probably Ontario, and that's the home area. But the #2 place is the state of Ohio and Ohio breds.
Well, you know, in Ohio, you get opportunities, like you said. Even if you're a Stallion Series horse, my theory is they're still going to have to go race at the fairs. You only get 5 starts in the Stallion Series, so you have to put some fairs in there. But the good part of that is our fairs, you know, the purses can average a lot. They can go from anywhere from 2,000 clear up to 10,000. But at the end of the year, there's I don't know if it's $40,000 or $50,000 final to the fairs. If you're good enough to go to the fair final and the Stallion final, you have a chance of racing for maybe $100,000 between the two. It just gives you so much more opportunities than, say, you can only be one, a sire stake, a fair, a stallion. You try to mix them in there together and give your owner a chance to really make some money.
Brian, we want to thank you for giving us a few minutes out of your busy schedule today, and now it's time to move into the barn area and taking a closer look at some of your 2-year-olds in action here in the Buckeye State.
Racing is back at Eldorado Scioto Downs. Catch the excitement all summer long. Live racing every Tuesday through Saturday nights. First post time is at 6:15. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with the $150,000 Next Generation on July 2nd and 3rd. On the 2nd, it's the 2-year-old Trotters, followed by the Pacers on the 3rd. Horse players earn points with the new Caesars Reward Program. Eldorado Scioto Downs live racing is back.
Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. Sugar Valley's lineup of stallions includes world champion Downbytheseaside, Lather Up, the fastest horse in harness racing history, Little Brown Jug champion Well Said, and the newest stallions to the Sugar Valley lineup, Adios champion Catch the Fire, and the son of Hambletonian champion Muscle Hill, MARSEILLE. Sugar Valley Farm, the home of champions.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. As we're here in the barn area, and we're going to take a look at some of the 2-year-olds along with Brian Brown. Gulf Shores Pacer. Tell us something about him.
This is a Seaside. I believe he's out of a Dragon Again mare. My main guys, Jim Kaler, the Country Club Kaler stable, Joe Sobraco. I forget who else is in Diamond Creek. What do they call it? The crossover racing. They're in on this horse. A couple of my other guys got in with them on crossover racing. Charlie Wingfield and his brothers. This is probably my nicest Ohio bred right now.
Really?
Yeah. And not that he's that far above most of the others, but he just seems like my nicest colt right now.
Who picks these yearlings out?
We do it together. Some of the owners that let me do it all. I pick them out. I put them, when I get done at the sales, I'll go home, and the ones that I have bought, I need partners. I put a list of all the owners on one text, and I send the horses' names, how much they cost, what's available. It gives everybody the same chance if I put it all on one text and send it at the same time. Whoever calls first gets in.
So basically you buy the horses and put them all up? And
that's what we do on those. Now this, the Country Club, the son, James Kaler Jr., he goes through the sale book and picks out the pedigrees he likes the most. I do the same. We go through. So most of our horses, we both have picked out of the sale book. But he goes with me to all the sales and goes over confirmation with me and everything. So there's other owners, Bill Donovan, Joe Sobraco. He hasn't been the last couple sales because of COVID, but he used to go to all the sales too. So all those guys know what they're doing.
What makes Gulf Shores make you think he maybe your best Ohio bred?
I think right now he does it easier maybe than the rest of them. Just maybe a little more go than the rest of them. And, you know, again, we're talking this at, I've been in 210 once with them. You know, when we get down to putting them behind the gate, that's when you really start finding out. But you have a good idea of who is who before you ever qualify, which ones you think could really be nice horses. So far, he's done nothing to disappoint us.
Gulf Shores, one of the many down by the seasides. Westender.
This is another down by the seaside. He was a homebred of the L&H stable, and the country club guys went in with him. Scott Davis, Dean Davis's son, was in Ohio for years. He's in on him.
Many homebreds in the barn?
Not a lot, a handful, but not a lot. We have a couple that we raise ourselves, and but most of them are bought. Now the country club guys, since they have down by the seaside, have bought a few more mares. So in the future we'll probably have a few more.
Theoretically, they're homebreds, but
yeah. This colt, he's not in our top bunch, but he's not far behind. He needs opened up to calm him down. We're just going to start doing that tomorrow. Trained today, a little aggressive, but he was all right. He, like I said, just not one of the best ones, but I'd at least put him in the B group, so he's okay.
Is there one general characteristic of down by the seasides?
Well, I think what's starting to show up in him that he was a little aggressive, and the seasides are getting that way. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because they act like they want to be racehorses. There's very few of them that's lazy, don't care to go. They all seem like they want to go.
Can you make a change in them and equipment-wise and take some of that aggressiveness away from them?
That's what we're going to try to do. Seaside wore an open bridle, and a couple of his colts already have open bridles, and this one's going to get one too.
Westerner. This is Forever Sunshine, another down by the seaside.
This is one of our better fillies. We bought her at Maryland sale, I think $33,000 maybe. The only problem we have, and it hasn't been a problem, she just breathes a little funny. Nothing mechanically seems to be wrong. A lot of pimples, which is common in young horses. But if that would ever go away, I think she's a really nice filly. Been in 210 also. We only went in 15 today. We backed off a little. But nice filly. Again, one of the seasides. She's aggressive, but she's not one that we have to make a bridle change on yet. She's been pretty good.
Down by the seasides mainly look kind of large. She looks pretty big.
That's my style. I like the bigger horses. So yes, that's one of the things in the seasides. They don't tend to look like the Sun Beaches other than their height. They're not as coarse as most of the really good Sun Beaches. They were coarse, a lot of Roman noses. These horses are not as coarse. They're more racy looking, but they still have the size that I like.
She got any peculiarities?
No, other than she can get a little aggressive, but like I said, right now it's not a problem. We like the aggressive stage she's at is good right now.
How often do you get to sit behind your youngsters?
I split them up. I try to go to it with a different horse in each set every time they train. We train every 5 days, so sometimes it's twice a week, sometimes it's only once. So probably over a 3-week period, I try to be behind them all, but I try to be in the 2-year-old sets. I try to be in every set.
Ryan Brown's hoping that the sun shines bright for Forever Sunshine. This is Mermaid by the Sea, and we compare this to the others. She's built perfect, it looks like, but she's a little smaller than the others.
She's not as big as like the last filly we looked, but most people's mind, she's probably the right size. I like the bigger horses, but she's good size without being too big.
Does a little horse have to be extra good to keep up with a bigger horse?
I believe so. I think it's just their gait isn't as long. Now, I've had a couple nice horses that weren't real tall. Lost for Words was not a big horse, but he was a long-barreled horse. So it made his stride longer, and, you know, he could compete with the best ones. So I like the big horses because I think you do have an advantage. Now, you know, a big horse is tougher to keep sound too, but I like the bigger ones.
Are all your 2-year-olds at about the same level right now?
No, we've got some behind. The better ones several have been in 210. We got a group that's probably 3 groups been in 15, and another group or 2 that's been in 25.
So basically you train them according to where they're at that particular stage.
Right, and for some reason or another, those horses got behind. It's not actually their ability, it's just they had some problems. Sickness, soreness, just gave them time off to sounding up, whatever the case may be. But, you know, it's not that they're just completely bad horses, they just had a problem.
Mermaid by the Sea. To prove that not every horse in the Brian Brown stable is a Downbytheseaside, here's one by Fear the Dragon, another horse that you're quite familiar with.
Right. I wish I had more Fear the Dragons. We only started with 4. One cracked a bone, and one he had problems from the start, so we had to sell him. This colt, he's not a real big colt. I wish he was a little thicker. I don't mind his height. I wish he was just a little stronger. But so far, he's had a great attitude. Likes to come from behind more than being on the front, but Fear the Dragon did too. He liked to follow horses.
His name is the Mad King. Is he a mad horse?
No, he's a perfect little horse to be around.
Has he been easy to train?
Yes, he's probably one of the nicest mouths on a horse that we have. Wears a straight bit, doesn't grab on, steers good. He honestly doesn't do much wrong. He might spook from a horse, shy from him a little in a training mile. Other than that, he's just one of them horses that just goes out and trains.
He's one that does what you want him to do and not necessarily what he has to do.
He does what we want him to do when we want to do it.
The Mad King. This is some local breeding, really. Sectionline Racer. We got the Sectionline name here on this horse.
Yes, this is a Harold Bowder raised horse right here in Delaware. I think it's my 3rd horse from Harold, and they've all been okay. One was really good at 2 and then come back at 3. The other one's just a nice horse. I think this is the best one of the 3. He's a Fear the Dragon. Now he can get a little bit excited, similar to the Seasides, but we've opened his bridle up and he's calmed down. So, but just a good attitude, tries every time.
Do you break the horses up here or down in Florida?
They're broke here. Now, the last couple years, to keep my health busy, we've been doing most of the breaking. Now, last year, we had probably 15 that an Amishman broke. And in the years before that, probably 4 or 5 years in a row, that Amishman broke almost all of them. And he does such a good job that if I can leave him there a month, he'll have hobbles, shoes on. They come back like old horses. So it makes my job so much easier.
But you're getting more to breaking them yourself, though.
We had to go back to that because we have help that we need to keep employed. They need jobs, so we've went back to breaking ourselves quite a bit.
Anything unusual about this horse on the racetrack? Or?
Nothing unusual. He's not as easy to drive as the Mad King, but he's a little more aggressive. But he just does everything. He wants to be a good horse too. So hopefully they keep progressing and we have a good year.
Do they change a lot from early in their 2-year-old season to the end of the season?
Sure. I mean, it's like anything else. You know, you go through a whole season. It's no different like basketball, being a freshman, or football. By the end of the year, you're not considered a freshman anymore.
Does their size change much during the campaign?
No, I don't think as much as it between their 2 and 3-year-old year. But sure, some of them are, especially in Florida, we feed a real high quality hay. We feed a decent hay here, but it's really rich down there, and I think it really packs on the pounds and the muscle, and it helps them up here, I think they get taller up here to where down there, I think they get thicker.
Sectionline Racer. This is Sea Luck by Down by the Seaside, but goes back, I see 3 of your horses go back to Rocknroll Hanoverr.
Right. This was out of a Rocknroll Heaven mare. For a Seaside, he's good size, not really tall, but he's also built a little like Rocknroll Heaven, real thick, broad across the shoulders and the rear. He's turned into one of my best ones. I still put Gulf Shores first, but this horse is not far behind. And for a big horse, he's got a long barrel too. He gets around the turns on the half pretty good here.
What is the ideal trait that you want in each and every one of your horses?
Well, the main trait you want in any horse is guts. If they have guts, it doesn't matter how fast they can go. You can always find a place to race that horse and he'll do well. You know, if you get a horse with high speed and guts and soundness, if you get the whole package, sure, they're going to be great horses. But it doesn't matter if he's a claiming horse. If he's got guts, he's going to be a good horse.
Wanted to give you his all from the beginning to the end.
Right.
This is Sea Luck. This is a Risenshine Seaside, another Down by the Seaside. He's got a little extra work being done on him.
Right. This is, he's getting his teeth done. We do all they're yearlings at that time in November, early December at the latest. Get some wolf teeth out, knock the edges off. They just break a heck of a lot easier when their teeth are good. And then we come back in the spring and we hit them again.
If they have bad teeth, it affects the way they eat, affects the way they are on the racetrack.
Well, mainly it affects the way they drive. If their teeth are sharp, you have a heck of a time steering horses.
How's Risenshine been doing?
He's turning into one of the Seasides. He's getting aggressive. He didn't train in the second trip. He was too aggressive the first trip even by himself. So he went the second trip by himself. So he'll have a bridle change tomorrow.
Okay, you only went by himself because you hadn't changed the equipment.
Right.
But once you change the equipment, you'll put him back with the others.
We'll put him right back in with the rest of them, yes.
Risenshine Seaside. Seaside Beauty, and she's a beauty.
I thought this was the nicest looking filly I bought at the sale. She was a $50,000 buy at Lexington. Total opposite of what most of the Seasides are. Very, very lazy. You've got to make her jog. You've got to make her train. She's been able to do it. She's only been in 215. She's been a little bit behind. She tied up her last training, so she hasn't trained in about 10 days. So that's why she wasn't on the video training today. She'll train soon. I think everything's in order. She can go back. But total opposite. Good gaited, nice looking, but very, very lazy.
Seaside Beauty, you say she's not aggressive, she's kind of laid back. Will she change?
Well, we hope she does. And I think it's just repetition. Keep putting her in there and keep making her do it. And I don't know if she's ever going to be an aggressive horse, but hopefully she'll turn into a racehorse.
Of course, that's not all bad, is it, if they're not aggressive?
No. As long as they get to where they want to do it, the drivers love the ones like this that are laid back, but they got to go too. You know, they can't be so laid back that they won't go at all. But no, the drivers love the laid back horses.
Seaside Beauty. Bottle and Cork. Have you gone to the bottle on this one yet?
No, I'm not much of a drinker. This filly actually would not drive you to drinking. She's turned into a really nice horse. Right now, I think she is probably our best Ohio bred filly. Gave $50,000 for her in Lexington. Decent family, but all winter she would always go crooked, too anxious. She had to have her bridle open early down there. And we treated her for EPM right before we left Florida, and it's made a world of difference. She straightened up. Now she can pace good and straight and smooth, and has a great attitude too. She wants to be a good horse.
Down by the Seaside. Bottle and Cork. This is McWitched by McArdle.
Yeah, this is a McArdle, but I've had good luck with McArdles. Of course, I bought more Seasides than anything this year, but this is a homebred from Dave Prushnock from Pennsylvania. He raced her mother. You probably called a lot of her races. And we just talked last week. This one's been giving us trouble. She gets too antsy, not like over aggressive, but just nervous and makes breaks and kind of, you know, runs sideways when she gets by another horse. So Dave told me about that and told me, you know, to back off, take our time, as what they did with her mother. And she is starting to come back around. She didn't train today because she trains with that filly that tied up, Seaside Beauty, so she has to wait a couple days.
I noticed you jogged her on the back track, which settles her down.
It helps calm her down. She's not as spooky. And it's different. The back track, you know, it's just more laid back, so they calm down. But it's just a different view, and we're hoping all this different stuff eventually calms her down.
The dam, the Zokitatri, world record performer, if I remember correctly.
I don't know that, but I know she turned into an open mare and became a really good horse. Yeah. So that's what Dave was pointing toward, is slow down and try to get her mind right and then go with her.
Pennsylvanians own an Ohio bred. Mick Whitchard. Secret side piece. And this, I just have noticed, of all the horses we looked at, this is the only one that's got any white underneath his head.
I don't know if that's a Seaside thing or just from the mares. Honestly, I don't know. But, and to be honest, since you mentioned it, I probably never paid attention before.
Yeah, it's the only one I can remember of the 12.
Right.
What about Secret Side
This
piece?
is another Seaside. She's been like a lot of the others, a little too aggressive. Hers is more of a nervous aggressive, you know, gets scared, runs, makes breaks. We made bridle changes. I changed a bit, trained really good today. So she's starting to get it, starting to calm down. You know, we open them up. By race time, sometimes you get them too calm. You're putting an eye hood on to wake them back up. But very happy with her today.
Has she been easy to train or difficult?
No, difficult. She just gets too excited. She's made a lot of breaks, usually sometimes early, sometimes coming down the stretch, mainly when she's just in with a group of horses. We try to train 3 to 4 in a set every time, and she can just get too excited. We got a head pull on now, a line pull on the other side, so we're getting her to go straighter, but it all comes from calming down. When she quits being nervous, probably won't need the head pulls.
I noticed today you've got a lot of your 2-year-olds being shod. Do you have a regular schedule for shoeing horses?
Before we start racing, especially in the winter, feet don't grow as fast, once a month. And once we start at least qualifying or training really hard, every 3 weeks.
Do you change the shoes on horses to get them to do certain things?
Not as much as you used to have to do. Now we still, we've got one that's still training in side weight shoes behind the heavier shoe. He's a McCardle, but it helped him. But not this day and age, most horses come to the gate pretty easy.
Yeah. Which was she in your fast set or the medium set?
She has been in 210, but that day she might have run coming down the stretch. So maybe she's only been in 211, but I think she's going to turn into a really nice filly.
Secret side piece. That wraps up today's edition of Freshman Focus. Join us again next week. Same time, same location for another edition of Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by Eldorado Scioto Downs, now racing Tuesday through Saturday. First post time, 6:15. Freshman Focus is a presentation of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.